So today I made a little over $1,000. Let me show you how I found, entered, and managed my trade so you can see exactly how to do this every single day in under 90 minutes. What ended up really working for me though was sticking to one specific strategy. And I want to walk you through that right now, because really what damages you the most as a trader and gets you stuck in what I call a learning loop, and I was stuck in it for years, is that you jump from strategy to strategy. You have to eventually land on one that works for you, because jumping from strategy to strategy or trying to add multiple indicators here and there just does not work. You have to stick to a specific strategy. And this is one that I eventually landed on. It got me out of that learning loop, and I was able to become consistently profitable after years of just struggling. And it's the same thing that I look at every day. And so it's one, looking for either a support level or resistance level. This is a support level in this trade. And again, go check out that video I mentioned about drawing support and resistance levels. That's will really help you in how I find these. All it is, it's that timing, right? That patience, waiting for now this market, and I'm trading the S&P 500 here, to come down into this level. You can see I have a trend line here. Wait for essentially this trend, this methodical trend it's in. So what I'm looking for is, I just want to see, okay, I want to see this trend break. I want to see it start to go sideways, lose that downwards momentum, because again, you don't want to just blindly be buying, hoping that it's going to reverse. You want to see signals that are telling you that it's going to reverse, right? And so from there, kind of the next thing in my setup is, once it's broken that trend, that's step two, I want to see it make some kind of attempt to keep going lower. I want to see it exhaust. This is kind of something that really keys me into saying, okay, this is actually really way more likely to reverse. And this is kind of, it'll catapult it in the other direction. So that's what I'm seeing right here for that, is kind of these two bearish candlesticks, is the market really fast paced in these two candlesticks tries to keep going lower. And you can see we essentially have a double bottom here, and it breaks out. The price here breaks out briefly, very, very tiny amount, but this big candlestick pushes it below, makes a new low, but it's barely making a new low. What I do is I call this a failed breakout. When it breaks, it makes a new low by just a little bit, and then the failure comes in when this candlestick right here, when this bullish candlestick happens. Now I'll zoom back in the recording here so you can see this. When I entered, is I entered in right here once this candlestick formed. I put essentially a stop market order above this, saying, hey, if it breaks above the high of this candlestick, I want to jump in on a trade, and I'm going to put my stop loss below this failed breakout, because I think I like to go with the structure of the market. And so I think that's a good place for a stop loss, because if the stop loss is below here, you know, it's more likely that if the market breaks below that, well, I think it'll keep continuing lower. I'm wrong on my idea, and I just want to move on to a better spot. Again, it's about that patience and waiting for these good spots. Another thing too to pay attention to is that risk reward, right? Is I want to make sure that I can risk a small amount here to capture a larger amount of profit. That's a positive risk reward, and that's going to help us become more consistently profitable in the long run. And so let me just kind of zoom this forward here, because now once you're in the trade, you got to manage it properly. A big issue I see a lot of people when they're scalping is they will jump out of a trade too early because they're scared for a few reasons. And the first one of those is moving up to break even too early. When you start to get a little bit of profit, when it starts to go in your favor just a little bit, you had all this fear of jumping in on the trade, losing this initial money, and you move up to break even too quickly. And what you have to realize is, especially for these kind of trades, when the market comes down here, it's going to have some sideways chop here for a while, potentially, before it shifts higher. And so what you have to do is you have to give it that wiggle room, that time. You don't know when it's going to kind of break out of this area, because you don't necessarily get in perfectly on the right time, right? And so actually what happened there was I added on 2 more contracts because I liked the fact that the market came down here again and had another bullish candlestick. I thought that was a good signal that it increased the likelihood to jump in or to go higher. And so I actually scaled in, I doubled down on this trade. I initially jumped in on a smaller size because I was a little worried about kind of potential chop and it didn't seem as strong of a move. And so I went in on half size. That's something you can do as well, is go smaller size when you're not as confident. And then when you get that confidence, if it's still in a good spot to jump in on a trade, you can add on. This is something a little more advanced, but it is something to definitely pay attention to. Another fearful thing that hits people is once it starts to go in their favor, they'll get out too early. Just try and let the market play out and do what it's gonna do, because you spend a lot of time waiting for the perfect spot to jump in. And in this case, these are always inflection points, right? The market's come down here, it's broken this trend. Either it's gonna go up and you can potentially capture a lot of money, or it's gonna go down. That's why we have our stop loss, right? You'll cut out and not lose that much money. And then on the flip side though, you can profit a lot. And so that's why you gotta kind of let these things play out. And so for me, of course, I've got better and better at this over time. This is something that you will get better at over time, but you have to put rules in place. What you need to do is have a management plan that you follow every time you jump into a trade. That, okay, I only go break even when the price, clearly breaks out in the direction and it's gone 1 or 1.5 times my risk in the profit area. And then I also wait and slowly trail it up only once it starts to put in a clean, methodical trend of structure that I can move with. I don't find it worthwhile to move up randomly at certain areas because you want to let things wait. And so what happened right here, this kind of moved up. I had a little horizontal line here because that's when news was happening. And so I was okay holding into news. I normally don't hold into news, but because my trade was already at break even, I thought that it was okay to hold into news because, again, I won't lose anything if it goes against me, but news can sometimes be a catalyst and punch the market higher. And so again, thinking about the risk reward, the math behind trading of I'm not risking much here if it goes against me, but if this news is really positive, I could get 3, 4, 5 times my risk if this really starts to accelerate in my favor. And so that's another thing to think about when you're trading, is managing that risk as well. And so just to kind of, again, keep zooming this forwards, you can see once it kind of had this bounce here from the news, that's where I kind of moved up with a swing. And then as well as it continues forwards, we have this uptrend line. I'll kind of move with the swings as it goes up there. And then from there, I'm looking to slowly start to scale out of the trade now as it starts to become more and more profitable in my favor. And so this is where the wiggle room and giving the trade time to play out is really powerful, because you don't know how it's going to play out. And so here it started to punch up, looks like it was going to keep going higher, and it knocks me out there for still a nice $1,000 profit on that trade. And that's a really nice way to close out the day. And so if you want to learn how you can start with this strategy, scale up from a small account risking $20 to $50 at a time, just like I did, and now to where I am now making thousands of dollars in one trade, check out this video right here. I will lay out a whole plan for you.